this back later. If you have anything that you would like to contribute while we're doing the body of the presentation, there is a chat window. If you go to the bottom of where the screen is shared, you should see a toolbox that comes up with a chat bubble. If you click on that, you can type your comments into that field and they'll show up for everybody. We probably won't stop during the presentation to address any comments that come in there, but you're welcome to communicate with each other that way publicly. And we are going to have a Q&A at the end where, you know, we'll ask you to unmute yourself if you've got comments or, you know, whatever comes along. I'm going to just, well, I'll allow everybody to talk as a host right when we go into the Q&A session. There are going to be live poll questions that come up with a period where you can answer. That's going to be part of the information that we gather about your preferences for sort of closed set items. And that's going to help inform our design process later. And then if you stick it out for the whole thing, at the very end, we're going to do a random prize drawing for some Thompson Trails Committee swag. And that's some fabulous t-shirts, at least one of which will commemorate the fact that Thompson, Connecticut is more than just a train wreck. So you can advance the slide, Steph. So now we'll all make our introductions. My name is Tira Penn. I'm the Director of Planning and Development for the town of Thompson. My role in this project is primarily as a facilitator. I wrote the assistance grant to National Park Service, which is how Steph and Elizabeth came to us. And I do a lot of herding of cats. But the heavy lifting is really being done by our NPS partners and by the members of the community. So I want to give them a chance to take all their credit here.
And I'm Elizabeth Brown. I'm a community planner with the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. And like Tira said, we have been working with Thompson for quite some time now, and we're excited to hold this webinar tonight.
Great, thanks. And my name is Stephanie Stroud, also a community planner with the National Park Service, working with the Thompson Trails Committee and others tonight. Happy to be here and thanks for joining us.
Hi, my name's Paul Provost. I'm representing the Thompson Authority and also a member of the Thompson Trails Committee.
Hi, I'm Lyanne. I work for the Last Green Valley as the office coordinator and the HETAP trail assessment coordinator. We've been working on the trails in the Airline State Park Trail now for going on 3 years.
Okay, so we're going to test the poll function now. You're going to see a window come up that you should have the option to click into live to answer a couple of just test questions. So allow panelists to vote and launch polling. Okay, so just let us know what age group you fall into.
And Tira, hopefully there's an option to share out those results as well.
Yeah, I don't know about that yet. I don't see it yet. Looks like 80% have responded and I don't see any new answers coming in. So I am going to end the poll.
So Steph, you want me to comment on this picture you have behind the poll?
And there you go. Yeah, go ahead and talk about that, Paul.
All right, so in the Turtle Lot High School, the old Turtle Lot High School, the Thompson Historical Society has a couple museums, and what you see in this photo right here is Tom Chase, which is the curator of the Ramsdale Train Collection Museum, and we also have on another slide you'll see there's the Thompson Historical Society actually moved an early 19th century Mechanicsville Penny General Store to a room in the school also. And the museum right now is closed to the public because of the virus. However, the main museum that's in the Thompson Common is open every Sunday morning from 9 to noon for your convenience.
Okay, so I've launched the second question. It looks like that did come up while Paul was speaking. So again, that's just to ask everyone where that they live. And I see that a couple of folks who don't fall into one of these two top categories have included their answers in the chat. So it's working as planned. Excellently. Excellent.
Folks joining us from Deep River, East Hampton, Webster, Mass.
And let's see, that's 72% voted, and there's no other answers coming in, so I'll go ahead and close that. And we can see most people who are here tonight are from Thompson, which is great. It's excellent that we would have members of the community in which the park is located, or this particular part of the state park is located, coming in to contribute. So here we go. Okay, so we know the polls work.
Excellent. Okay.
So this is an image of the Airline State Park Trail. And you can see how here in Thompson, this is the northern terminus within Connecticut. The trail does continue on into Massachusetts under another name, which I believe is the Southern New England Trunk Line Trail. Somebody else can correct me about that later. So it goes from Thompson up here all the way down to Portland. You can see there is a little gap here. I believe that there are plans to close that gap. I'm not particularly conversant in them, but Thompson and representatives from Thompson and from almost all, if not all, of the towns that lie along the trail are also members of something called the 12-Town Task Force. That is a task force organized by Connecticut Rural Conservation and Development under a grant that they received from Connecticut DEEP to develop some marketing and promotion of the Airline Trail. Many members of the group working on this park site for eventual development here in Thompson are also a part of that larger working group, and there's probably about 40 or 50 in there, and I see some of those folks are in here as well today. Here we go. Lori Giannotti's on there. Part of the gap being closed even as we meet. Excellent. So there is some context for the trail itself. And here's a little more of a close-up image of where the train wreck site is within Thompson on the Airline Trail. And you can see it's almost at that very northern terminus. It also is adjacent to a very popular spur off the trail, not exactly on the Airline Trail, which leads to the tri-state marker, where Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts all come together, somewhere around here. Okay, so, and again, you can see that here are some of the partners listed out in more detail of the folks who are joining in. Thompson Trails Committee again, Last Green Valley, Thompson Historical Society. I'd like to also mention the participation of the Thompson Branding Committee. They've been not necessarily as directly a part of this project, but this ties in with work that they and we have been doing to really look at trails and outdoor recreation and historical assets as drivers for the local economy, things that we want to develop. They are unique, just like these museum rooms that you see, and Paul can talk a little bit more about those. And I believe we're going to launch into some of the direct history of the train wreck itself.
On the pictures on the top right, that's the actual the general store, and the Kenny General Store that was in Mechanicsville. Basically, that was donated to the Historical Society, and we went down and we disassembled the whole store and we reassembled it in this classroom. So basically, it's a general store, and to the left, you can almost see there's a post office. They used to have a post office in the store also. And then just below that is the, you see Tom Chase in the middle. He's the curator of the Ramsdale train collection. And both those are in the old Turtle Lot High School.
And now we'll learn a little bit about the train wreck itself.
At East Thompson in 1891, Otis Clark was walking to the station and passed the Southbridge local. He saw the headlights of an oncoming locomotive.
Oh no, do we have data freeze?
Ran to the crew of the Southbridge freight to jump for their lives. He then ran back to signal the approaching train, but it was too late. It plunged head-on into the Southbridge local. Then the Long Island Express came into sight, and it plunged into the wreckage. 3 minutes later, the Norwich boat train came speeding along and crashed into the Long Island train. Here's a map of the towns that were involved in the accident. Putnam has a track through East Thompson to Boston. The local track comes from Southbridge through Webster and ended in East Thompson. The local line runs through Main Street, Webster. Looking north at Putnam Station, the branch on the right is going to Boston. The East Thompson Station is where the Southbridge local and the main tracks meet. Here is a look at the East Thompson Station. We see the two-track main line and the local passenger car behind the station. The freight house is the leftmost building, passenger depot in the center, and the switch house can be seen behind the steam engine. Here's a southwest view of the East Thompson Station, with the freight house on the left, passenger depot in the middle, and the switch house. You can see switch levers through the window. The local freight train, it was assembling 8 freight cars that were dropped off the night before. The Boston freight train pulling 11 cars and running late due to mechanical problems. Also in Putnam and running late is a Long Island and Eastern States Express, and following shortly behind is a Norwich boat train with the Adams Express car and 2 coaches. There were no scheduled trains coming from Boston, so the dispatcher sent the Boston freight north on the southbound track. Then they let the Long Island Express go on past the Boston freight. The Boston freight collided with the Southbridge local. The Long Island Express collided with the wreckage, and then the boat train collided with it. In the center, we can see the smokestacks of the 2 freight trains that collided head-on. You can also see the fire crews with hoses spraying water on the burning debris. The fire consumed most of the wooden freight cars. At the top center is a train approaching for assistance. We can faintly see all the wrecked engines. The track gang is working on straightening the track, and there is a crew of men working on a derrick. You can see the fire hose from the Webster Fire Department. Here is a view of all 4 engines. We can also see what's left of the Adams Express car, and what looks like snow here is actually cotton. Here is another view of the head-on collision of the freight trains. Here you see the Long Island and Eastern Express engine number 105 after it struck the debris and flipped 180 degrees. Here we see engine number 105 back on the track again. This slide shows a view from East Thompson Road looking south. You can see the local freight cars that got pushed over the bridge onto the road. There has been a long debate about the number of casualties from the train wreck. The engineer, Harry Tabor, and the fireman, Jerry Fitzgerald, from the Long Island and Eastern States Express have died. The relatives of Mr. Rath, who claimed that he was killed, are outraged that the railroad company insists Mr. Rath was not but is alive and in hiding for the purpose of defrauding the life insurance company. Here is a typical view of what the site looks like today.
All right, and now I'm going to turn it over to Lyanne for the train, or talking about the trail today.
The town of Thompson has many publicly accessible trails available for hiking, easy walking, nature study, biking, horseback riding, cross-country skiing, and boating. These trails are diverse in terrain. Some provide handicapped accessibility. Some connect to trail systems in neighboring communities. They all include town-owned and state-owned properties, Wyndham Land Trust properties, federally managed land, and a portion of the National Recreation Water Trail. These resources are not only used by residents of Thompson, but also by a significant number of visitors from outside of town. The Connecticut Trail Census has shown a significant increase in trail usage since the coronavirus restricted people's ability to socialize. As you can see from this slide, from one year to the next, some of the trails have doubled and some of them have even more than doubled. The Last Green Valley is currently working on assessing trails for people with mobility issues. We have assessed over 40 miles of the Airline State Park Trail and have had signs made and posted at road crossings from Poffret to Willimantic. You can find summaries of this information on our website, thelastgreenvalley.org. A very popular program the Last Green Valley has been doing for over 30 years, for the past 30 years, is called Walktober. It started out as a few walks on one weekend and has grown to over 200 walks, bike rides, paddles, and events over a 6-week period. Last year, there were over 95,000 participants. Even with social distancing this year, we were able to offer 130 events. The popularity of Walktober spread to the springtime with a similar program called Spring Outdoors, which is the same idea, but on a smaller basis. It has been going on for 4 years, and unfortunately, coronavirus hit when we were going to start our 5th year of Spring Outdoors. As Tara has said, the statewide 12-town task force is a group focused on promoting the Airline State Park Trail and the East Coast Greenway, which has designated the Thompson section of the Airline Trail as a complementary route between the Blackstone River Bike Path in Uxbridge, Mass, and the Spine route in Putnam, Connecticut. This designation connects 15 states, 450 cities and towns, and 3,000 miles of people-powered trails from Maine to Florida, the country's longest biking and walking route. This proves that working together with other organizations and municipalities, we can accomplish the goals that would be insurmountable to achieve alone. Thank you.
Alrighty, so like we mentioned, just briefly, Stephanie and I have been involved with efforts with the town of Thompson through the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. We know that's a mouthful, so our acronym is RTCA, which is a little easier. And so through our community assistance grant, we've been working with the town of Thompson over the last 1.5 years or so to create a Trail Town Action Plan. And so that plan will include recommendations for connecting the Airline State Park Trail to the rich cultural and recreational assets that are in the town of Thompson already. And we really hope that these efforts will enhance community pride, sense of place, and also drive the local economy. And so this train wreck park site that we're talking about tonight is really one of those exciting cultural assets that we want to connect everyone with and create interpretive opportunities for, so that more people are excited to get out there and see the site and be on the trail. And so in this process, it really is, we feel, important to engage with you all, our audience, and our knowledgeable stakeholders. You're the experts of your community. You're the experts of the Airline State Park Trail. So that's why we've invited you. And so through this work, we do hope that we can really bring your ideas into action and also learn more about the preferences that you have for how you'd like to learn and recreate in Thompson and along the trail and at the train wreck site.
And another group of partners that we'd like to mention is a team of seniors from the UConn School of Engineering. At least some of them are here tonight. And in fact, Josh, I allowed you and Shalini to be able to unmute yourselves and speak. I wasn't sure who else was in checking the list. But as some of you may be aware, the UConn School of Engineering every year offers up to municipalities and other organizations. Oh, and there's Sean. Sean, I'll let you in too. About to talk. To municipalities and organizations to work on discrete engineering projects, not as fully licensed engineers, but certainly to assist with sort of concept design and sort of working through some of those problems. So it's a great resource for towns. And Josh Connor is the team leader. So if Josh, if you want to say a little bit, go ahead and unmute yourself and introduce.
Thank you, Tyra. Yeah, basically, we were assigned this as part of the transportation-specific civil engineering projects. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic, it kind of complicates the capabilities and actions we can really do. But overall, we're just kind of using this as a learning experience and to work alongside like the historians, also the parks and service people, and also just anybody else that wants to provide feedback to the design of the parking lot, as well as like the design of the airline trail.
Right, so the feedback, again, that we get tonight, not just from the polling questions, but from anything that gets captured in the chat window, because this does create a record of that, and then in the Q&A section later, because it's all being recorded. That's all useful to the students as they sort of try to pull these elements together into their senior design project, and of course to the master planning as well. So again, we're glad that you're all here, because you guys are the most important partners in a lot of ways, the people that this asset will ultimately serve.
All righty. Thanks everyone for providing such a nice background about the train wreck site and about the Airline State Park trails and the great work that's being done. So this is the part that we're really excited about, where we can hear from you all about what types of things you'd like to see at the train wreck site. So this is the existing site today. And you can see it is a parking lot, but it is a little bit rough at the moment. So we're hoping to really design it in a way that fits the needs of the users. And you can probably make out a kiosk there in the back of the parking lot. That is the kiosk that's existing. This road, East Thompson Road, is a busy street. So, and it's on a curve. So you can imagine that it might be a little dicey for pedestrians and cars looking to turn into this parking lot. And right across the street, as Tira mentioned earlier, is the Tri-State Marker Trail. And that's a very popular hiking destination that has a marker marking the border between Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. And that's one of the most popular hiking trails in the state. So it's a busy intersection, and we would want to encourage people to safely cross the street from this parking lot. So that is something that we're going to be thinking about. And just based on what we heard from our committee and reaching out to stakeholders, these are kind of the goals of what we're hoping to accomplish with our design of the park. We want to interpret the history of Thompson in a way that's enjoyable for the community. We want to promote that trail town concept Elizabeth was discussing earlier, which basically just means that folks can recreate here at the trail, go for a walk or a hike, and then learn about things that are in town. So services, places to eat, other places to go for the day, cultural sites. You saw all those other trails in Thompson, so maybe doing other trips. So basically connecting all of those amenities in town is what we refer to as the trail town concept. We want to use public land, and we're not looking to make any sort of recommendations on private land or take private land. So this is all things that the town owns currently. We want to focus on what can be done quickly and inexpensively, if possible. That way it goes up fast and you can enjoy it sooner. We also want to create a welcome, family-friendly environment that's safe to use and promote the feeling that you have arrived and create a sense of place that is unique to the town of Thompson and really shares that feeling of community in Thompson. And one that has curb appeal. And you saw that it is a busy street. So we're hoping that folks that drive by will be intrigued enough to pull in and take a look. So this sketch here is just a quick concept of what we're looking to achieve based on the goals that we heard from the community so far. So this is basically a rendition of the photo you saw of the existing entryway. So one of the first recommendations is placing low-growing native plants all around the perimeter. That way cars can see over them, so there's a visibility there and they can see if people are walking throughout the space and slow down with maybe a fence around it for added safety. And it would be something kind of attractive to draw your eye. We'd also really want to focus on that pedestrian connection, connecting the entrance to the state park trail to the tri-state marker, and making it a safe place for crossing with maybe a flashing crosswalk, something highly visible for pedestrians, and that will help calm traffic, slow down traffic. We also have this idea for a pavilion that is welcoming and provides trail services for users. And we'll get into a little bit about the details of that. But this is something that we had an idea about based on the pavilion that exists in Pomfret today, which is that image there. And also the historic Thompson train depot, which you'll see a photo of. So that is kind of what the inspiration comes from. And we'll talk more about that, as well as kind of a gateway sign that makes you feel like you've entered a space and then has some character to it. And this is an example from the Still River Greenway over in Brookfield. And I see our chat is getting lively over here. So thank you for your comments there. We're also going to address questions at the end of the design portion too, so we can get into the details a little bit more there. Also in this kind of concept here, you'll see we could include things like benches, porta potties, information kiosks, bike services. So let's get more into that. So about that pavilion idea. On the top left, you'll see the historic Thompson train depot. That's what it used to look like. So that's where our inspiration comes from. Also from the pavilion in Pomfret, there's a larger photo there. And then this quiet picnic pavilion, slightly different feel to it, more simple, maybe a little bit more peaceful. So we'd love to hear from you now in the poll. What amenities are most important for you to have with the pavilion? So we realize that all of these options might seem appealing, and that's okay if you like them all, but if you had to choose just one, what would be the most important for you? And so if we could, there we go, got the poll going. So feel free to take a moment and vote. And if you don't see the most important amenity to you here, please share it in the chat. And I guess I will say too, we are a little bit limited out here. I think we don't have the ability for electricity, but we can still think outside the box a little bit. And if you have any fun suggestions, please share them.
It looks like we've got about 63% voted. We'll leave it open for another couple of seconds if you haven't had your chance yet.
Ooh, we have a suggestion for sculpture art, especially train related. Very cool idea.
All right, so that's 75% voted. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Wow, so looks like historically accurate replica of the train depots coming in pretty high, as well as porta potties. Very important necessity. And we have some suggestions for solar powered toilets and solar batteries. Thank you for those. All right. And now we're going to get into interpretive features. So interpretation is a fancy way of saying storytelling. So we'd love to hear kind of what your feedback is on some of the ideas that our committee has come up with. And I will share those now. So we have several options. And this is a site plan showing kind of where some of the artifacts are. And so these are existing artifacts at the train wreck site now. And for example, that is what the historic turntable used to look like. And that is what the turntable looks like today. So you can see kind of the remnants in the woods here that if you don't have any information, you wouldn't know what it was all about. So what we're hoping to do is to tell the story of the train wreck along the trail. And we have a few different ideas for how we can do that. So the first option is your classic, what we call interpretive signs. So they're just kind of custom built signs that have all the information about what you're trying to interpret. Here's a couple different examples. And then Paul on the right there has some that he made actually for kind of like a temporary pop-up interpretive tour. So there's some precedents there. But these are great because they have all the information right there. You can read it. Some folks say it's not desirable because it could clutter up a landscape. They are more susceptible to vandalism, and they have to be sometimes maintained or replaced. But they do have all the information right there, and you don't need any other sort of technology to read it. So those are our first option. The second option, numbered posts with guide, has more of a scavenger hunt feel. So maybe what you would see is just a post with a number on it, or maybe a QR code that you can scan, which could take you to a mobile website, maybe with an audio tour that could have oral histories, more information. So some of the perks of this option are you can have lots of information on a website that people can look at, or a printed map. that could be a reference tool. It doesn't clutter up the landscape as much, and it leaves people intrigued and wondering what the number means. But it also may be a barrier for folks that don't have smartphones, and it might require printing maps. So that could be a potential downside. Option 3 are what we're calling windows to the past. And you see a historic photo here, which we have lots of for the train wreck and the Airline State Park Trail. So that could be a potential way to envision what this site used to look like in a kind of striking way. The photo on the right is from the Manhan Rail Trail in Western Massachusetts, and you could see the train sitting right on top of the trail there. So you could imagine what it used to look like. The top left example has a little QR sticky on there. So if you were intrigued by the picture and wanted to learn more, you could scan it and read more about the photo. So that is our option 3. Option 4 is guided tours. So like we mentioned, there are tours that are currently happening at the train wreck site. Speaking from the National Park Service, our ranger-led programs are really, really popular. It leaves a very intimate experience for the visitor to talk with a tour guide who knows all about what they're interpreting. It lets them ask questions, very interactive. And that way you kind of get a bit of a flavor for the community. So that's option 4. And then option 5 is an interactive recreation. So this has something that is more tactile. You can maybe walk on. So the photos on the left are from a miniature train exhibit in Skykomish, Washington. So they went all out and just recreated their train. So that's interactive for more so for children. And the top right is from the High Line in New York, where they took pieces of the rail line and just made it safe for walking on and climbing all over. And then the bottom right is a turntable footprint from the Central Eastern Railroad Museum, the Connecticut Eastern Railroad Museum. And so that is something that could potentially evoke what the feeling was of having that train infrastructure along the trail and maybe be repurposed for a picnic area or something else. But that way you can climb on it, you can touch it, so it's interactive in that way. Okay, so those are our 5 options that we have. Maybe you have more ideas and we'd love to hear them, but we were just curious, which one of those is the most appealing for you? Which is the favorite?
And if you have an idea for other, just share that in the chat with us and we can look over those and address those. And then also, if you have any clarification questions about some of these options that Stephanie just went through, you want to review them again, just to make sure you understand them, post that into the chat and we can give a refresher.
Lots of suggestions for replicas. Replica of the engine to give people an idea of how big they were. Replica of some of the track. Reconstruct the turntable. Loving the audio that has website that tells the story.
And it looks like we've got 69% who voted, which means a few people haven't voted. Oh, here we go.
Becky from Douglas, Mass. Combine 1 and 3 and supplement with 4. I like your style.
All right, I'm going to close the poll and share the results. And the windows to the past were a very popular option. I have to say, I like those myself.
Yeah, it looks like we have a couple of suggestions for thinking about how we can combine some of the options that Steph presented.
All right, thank you so much for that feedback. You're giving us lots to think about. Okay, and now turn it over to Tira for questions and answers.
Well, actually, I think we were going to move a slide up just to talk about final steps and then open it up for questions and answers rather than have to hear me yakking later. So there are a few next steps for us after this. You know, the next step, of course, is to take all the information that we get from this panel, and if we run this workshop again or something similar to it, the ongoing work from all the partners who have come together. And at the end of this assistance period with National Park Service, to turn our final reports and designs and ideas into one or more follow-up grants to actually get funding to produce some of these things, because although we want to focus on that which we can do quickly and inexpensively, very little can actually be done at no cost. So there are a couple of specific grant opportunities we'll be exploring, one from Connecticut Humanities, which does support humanities interpretive signage. And that's on a rolling basis, so we'll be able to convert this, I think, into a very compelling narrative for whichever interpretive option we choose. And then the National Endowment for the Arts does an annual creative placemaking grant called either Our Town or Our Place, which is very much what the name implies. That trail town idea is a way to sort of infuse creative thinking into the development of assets for the town, in this case specifically centered around outdoor recreation. So those are opportunities that are out there. And yeah, we're looking forward to keeping this moving. The reason that we pursued it in the first place was because the Historic Society and Trails, I think as we said earlier, has done very popular guided tours, just sort of with chewing gum and duct tape and the signs that Paul Provost made with the QR codes on a temporary basis. So that gave us the indication that this is something that people enjoy, and something, again, unique to the site. History is unique to where it took place, and this event took place on a site that already has public recreation value. So it's a great way to bring all those things together. So now I'm going to enable everybody to talk. So if you have any questions, you can either unmute yourself and just put your name and what town you're from or what organization you represent in the chat window, just so we can sort of call on you in order. And sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once here. And then we'll chat about it. We'll get your ideas.
I see one question about where and how will the action plan be made available. So the action plan will include all of the recommendations from the University of Connecticut, as well as the outcomes from this workshop tonight. And we'll be assembling that in the spring and summer, and then we will distribute it when it's all completed then.
And Lori Giannotti, for some reason, I can't allow you to talk unless I promote you to a panelist. So you can, which I'm happy to do, or you can just use the chat if you have anything that you want to contribute on behalf of Connecticut Deep. Don't be shy, guys.
So we have a question from Becky about room for a few horse trailers. Are they still going to be included? That is something
Becky, I think that's a great point. And for the students to UConn, I would say mark that in your notes, guys.
We can certainly consider that.
This is Charlie Obert. The one drawing that you showed of the site where the station was is part of a larger set of drawings that does include revisions for the parking lot. I want to make sure that the UConn students are aware of that. And in addition to that, okay, you're going back there. That's only one of the panels in there. There's another one that shows the crossroad at the route at East Thompson Road. So that's been looked at and should be factored in. Another point is I want to make extra sure that we emphasize for the long-term planning on this and get ourselves tied in with information about the TAP grants. Maureen Nicholson from Pomfret is in on this session, and she could perhaps speak to the success that the airline trail has had in replacing bridges and other work in the town of Pomfret.
I know, that's how it was with me.
One very large bridge will be going in next week,
Oh, yeah,
I think, over the top of Route 44. So
Muslim guy you're
I
friends
think
with?
it's important as we're looking at this, not to limit ourselves only to the resources of the town of Thompson.
He goes, this is such and such. I'm sure you've heard this. Oh my God, yes, I have.
I'm trying to figure out who that is that needs to be muted. Can anybody tell?
My son talks about you like you're his father.
I can't tell.
And he goes, and he introduced me to his youngest boy, and he goes, we.
It looks like it might be Becky's phone, Becky's
I think I just got it. Okay. Back to the events at hand. Maureen, did you want to talk about,
Sure.
what's going on
I'll
at Pomfret?
chime in on that. Yes, the town of Pomfret did apply for many years before we actually received any transportation alternative program funding. But that basically comes through the Northeast Connecticut Council of Governments. And we are the beneficiary of right now approximately $5.5 million for 2 bridges and 3 culverts and 2 at-grade crossings, which between the town of Pomfret and Putnam will open up that 3 to 4 mile section from Pomfret Station into the Putnam River Trail. We will be applying for another TAP grant. To the trail isn't finished. It needs resurfacing and it needs to have a connection at the end in Putnam to the river trail, which is being explored and designed, which will be explored and designed. And I can also tell you that right now, the word that I have for the bridge coming in over 169 will be Friday. Let me look at the calendar. Friday, November 20th. That's the word I got today for dropping in that. I'm not supposed to use that term, dropping, putting in the bridge at 169. We did do that. The train station in Pomfret burned. So we did recreate a sort of a feel of a train station with that pavilion. And that that Pomfret station gets a lot of use. It's very active. I don't know if I can answer any other questions. I'd be happy to.
I have a footnote about that. After I got in touch with Maureen a few weeks ago, I got in touch with some people at NECOG. And among the points that were emphasized to me is that the TAP grant is being used primarily with a high focus of completing the East Coast Greenway through Connecticut. And has been already reported this evening by Leanne from the Last Green Valley. The East Coast Greenway is designated the section from Putnam to Uxbridge, which will include the SNET, the Southern New England Trunk Trail, and our link of the airline trail. And we would not have been designated as a connector route, but we are now. So that's something that, again, the UConn students may want to put in their folder as they're gathering data and reaching out to CONDOT about these plans and how we can get a more complete proposal out of it.
Thanks, Charlie.
Lori Gennati had a question about possibly doing combined events or promotions with the Railroad Museum in Wyndham. Tom Chase is on the call. He's our railroad expert. So I don't know anybody there, but he may have a good connection. So I'll let him talk about the railroad aspect, the interest that might be there on this site because of the historical event. Unless you are muted and I can't unmute you on this screen, Tom. Oh, and that does look to be the case. Joey Martino, I saw that you were in too. Can you unmute yourself? You talk about some of the more the success the Historic Society has had with events in general, and maybe relationships that you have with other historic societies or small museums.
The Eastern Connecticut Rail Museum has been a big supporter of our walks and talks at the site, and they've collaborated with us for many years. We do 2 walks a year there and typically get somewhere between 30 and 60 people each time we do it. So it's just good, and we've been doing it now so long. You'd think we'd run out of people, but we don't. Every year there's a new crowd.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for
There's a
everything you're doing.
So comment, the Connecticut Rec Trails Grants Program is awaiting to release $3 million from the Office of Policy and Management. Please remind your legislators of the importance of these funds to your trail projects. They have the power to get the funds released to DEEP.
Tom Chase asked me to, he's having trouble, but he asked me to name him as a panelist so he could share a picture. Oh, there he is. He's coming up. So he does have something he can contribute. Lori, I'm going to do the same for you because that's the only way I can allow you to talk, apparently. Oh, no, maybe now I can do it now. Yep. There we go. Take it away, Tom. Oh, he must still be having trouble. Let's see if I can.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, we got you now.
Yeah, no, we have good close connections with the Eastern Connecticut Railroad Museum, and I was a member last year. I think I missed my dues this year, but I'll get back in it again. And we, as Joe says, we usually do two walks a year with them, and I actually a couple of years ago I was their banquet speaker and gave a speech about the traffic. But I'm trying to see how I can show you a picture, and here we go, maybe. Just a sec. Can everybody see that?
Not yet.
Oh, wait a minute. Can everybody see that?
No, you've got to choose the share screen icon and then double click on whichever open tab you've got on your desktop to share.
There we go. Share screen.
There you go.
How's
It's gonna come
that?
up in a second. There you go.
Yeah, this is this is a little installation at the West Concord Massachusetts Bay Railroad MBTA's train station, and this shows where the Boston and Maine and the Fitchburg and Nashua railroads used to intersect. Here they used girder rail, which looks good, but it would be a little dangerous for a bicycle. But you could use simple railroad rail with a T-top on it and lay some of the track right back in place. And I think that might be a very good thing to do at the train wreck site. If just a sec. I put together a little bit of a PowerPoint. Here's the view that Paul showed. And you can see over here, this is the main track with a crossover. If you look at the actual plan, you can see here's the crossover, here's the siding, and this is the area we'd be really interested in. One would really like to have, I think would like to have reproduced. And it's about 300 feet long, so that it would be expensive, but it would certainly be interesting, and you could put it right back in exactly the same place as it was in 1891. So that's what I wanted to show.
Thanks,
I'd
Tom.
like to, Tom, I
Yes.
was thinking about that since you raised a subject the last time we had a committee meeting. What about if we were to go to where the other switch was that fed into the turntable, because that would not be in the main route of the bicycle and pedestrian traffic on the airline trail itself. We could put in a switch there and a sets of tracks that would feed into the turntable area and or into the roundhouse area. See, there you go. You've got your other switch right there underneath the word engine house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's another option for putting in a switch and lengths of track.
Yeah, Charlie, I had not seen that photograph, the Bob LeMay's photograph of the turntable at the Eastern Connecticut Railroad Museum during construction, which was shown. You could dig a turntable pit and at the exact size, and then you would not have to put in a turntable bridge, which is the expensive part of this kind of thing. And if you just had the pit there, it would be good, and you could in fact put some track around that if you wanted to. Yeah, that's a good idea. I wish there was some good way to mark where the tracks were on the airline trail. Other than that photograph from West Concord, I haven't thought of anything. You could use lime and do it every so often, I suppose.
How about if we used different color gravel?
Could be done.
Gravel's available in a lot of different colors, and if we could get some either red or a blue shade to it and put in more of the real outline.
Yeah. And there are also lots of outline, commercial edging for gardens both in plastic and in metal that might be helpful with this. I think it's worth considering, and because you could stand right exactly where the crossings was, and where some of the engines were, and where they ended up. Anyway,
Thank you so much for sharing those historic images, and for Charlie for your comments as well. I just want to make sure we're hearing from other folks on the call as well. If there are any
Sure.
other questions.
Yeah, and folks, you can just unmute yourself and start talking, or you can put your name in and just who you represent in the chat box to be called on either way. Lori Giannotti, I would actually be interested in hearing Connecticut Deep's thoughts about the site in general. You know, what kind of development you'd be interested in seeing there organizationally, or what to avoid. I think that's an important perspective.
Hi, everybody. It's Lori. First, I just want to say this is so exciting to me. I've been, it's really interesting to me, the history here, and especially because of having been to the site in Wyndham. I really can envision a tie-in between these two, and people, you know, going from one to the other, even in one day. I don't feel like it's that far away from each other. So thank you so much for all the work you've done. Just want to say that right off the top. To your question, I don't know how much involvement State Parks has had to date, so I'm going to refrain from giving, because you asked what the agency thought about this, and I'm not prepared to answer that question, but I will say that we are in support of getting people onto the Airline State Park Trail, and we love.
Oh, Lori, I think we just lost you.
We want to hear what you love.
I know. It sounded so exciting. All right. Well, if she comes back in, we'll let her go. Does anybody else have anything they want to add? Any comments or questions? We've been going for about an hour. We put aside an hour and a half, you know, to allow for as vigorous a conversation as we could have. We want to hear anybody's thoughts, certainly. But if it's played itself out, we can always let Stephanie draw the prize.
All right, maybe it's time for the prizes. So while we're waiting for hopefully Lori to come back and tell us what she loves, we'll choose 2 winners. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's what we decided earlier. Two winners. What we don't have, sadly, because we didn't think of it, is pictures of the lovely Trails Committee T-shirts. There are 2 available, a blaze orange. What does it say on it, Charlie? The regular, those are the Take a Hike shirts, right?
Yes, that's Take a Hike on the back of it. And on the front, it says Thompson Trails in a over the left breast, about a 2-inch circle that says Thompson Trails, and Take a Hike fills up the whole back.
Yeah, and the other one is a neon green long-sleeved T-shirt that says Thompson, Connecticut, more than just a train wreck, with an antique steam engine logo on the front, which we've had for about a year and have also been very popular. So we're going to draw for one of each of those, I think.
All right, so our first winner is Sean Doolittle. Congratulations, Sean.
I bet he's
Something to
overwhelmed.
remember. I'm sure he is. It's overwhelming. It's a great honor.
And our next,
Who's up next?
Julie Malcolm. Congratulations.
So you guys can get in touch with me. Sean actually has my email. He's actually one of the student team. Julie Malcolm, my email is right there at work. Just get in touch with me. We'll find out what size you wear, and we'll get a shirt to you. And thank you, everybody, for coming in and taking part, answering the poll questions, contributing your comments. Anybody is interested in continuing to work on this project with us, we have Steph and Elizabeth as our partners officially through the end of their fiscal year next year, I believe, which is the 30th of September. And we're just going to keep working on this and plugging it away. And involvement is always welcome from everybody, really. So you can always contact me. You can contact Thompson Trails through the Town of Thompson website, Thompson Historical Society, obviously through their website. Paul Provost's information there is there on the slide as well. And we hope you keep in touch with us, and we'll do our best to keep in touch on the Town of Thompson Facebook page, Town of Thompson website, Trails Committee Facebook page, any place you can find information. So thanks again, and everybody have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you, our great presenters.
Back at you.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody.